Welcome back to the People's Cabinet. So President Trump said the following about mail-in ballots. I am going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots and also, while we're at it, highly inaccurate, very expensive, and seriously controversial voting machines. Now, I would normally read the entirety of what a president says, but if you just look at the entirety of the truth, it's just way too long. It goes into open borders, quote unquote, transgender and woke for everyone, lots of caps, thank you for your attention to this matter, this kind of thing. I just want to, off the top, just completely dispel the notion of mail-in voting being some kind of scam, as well as understand and explain what's really going on here. Okay. So first and foremost, the Brennan Center has an entire study on this. And the title of one of their PDFs they release on it is Debunking the Voter Fraud Myth. And so there's a study, The Truth About Voter Fraud. The report reviewed elections that had been meticulously studied for voter fraud and found that incident rates between 0.0003% and 0.0025%. Given this tiny incident rate for voter impersonation fraud, it is more likely, the report noted, that an American, quote, will be struck by lightning than that he will impersonate another voter at the polls. Okay, so that's the Brennan Center. Over and over again, we see the case. So, okay, Washington Post took a look at this, cited a number of different studies that show that this is not a problem. Let me read a couple here. Veteran Republican, actually they write about this. The Washington Post says, veteran Republican lawyer Benjamin Ginsburg wrote in the Washington Post, the basic truth is that 4 decades of dedicated investigation have produced only isolated incidents of voter fraud. A Carnegie Corporation and Knight Foundation study of every known voter fraud case between 2000 and 2012 found that just 491 cases out of hundreds of millions vote cast. Even Heritage has documented only 200 or so cases of absentee ballot fraud out of 250 million ballots. Okay. So this notion that there is widespread fraud is just another lie that the president is promoting. Why is he promoting it? Well, the Pew Research Center did a study. It says Biden, and this is the case of Biden and Trump. This is in 2020. Biden voters nearly twice as likely to vote as Trump voters to say they voted by mail. And you can see the charts here. So clearly, Democratic voters, at least in this modern COVID times, seem more likely to be using mail-in ballots. And so what he is doing is trying to set up a situation where in the midterms, he's trying to disenfranchise Democratic voters. That's what it is. So will he be successful? He will certainly try to muddy the waters with litigation, with executive orders. But more importantly for him, this is a president who refuses to accept blame. That is how he always does things, right? 2020, it's not that he lost the election, it's that the election was rigged. This is just yet another example of that. Donald Trump is setting up a scene where, A, if he's most successful with his litigation, that there will be, that he will minimize Democratic votes and prevent at least some areas of people being able to vote by mail. But probably even just as importantly, or maybe even more importantly for him, he is setting up a scene where if he loses the midterms, it's not because he has gutted Medicaid for the people who need it most. It's not because he's handing out tax breaks to those who don't need it. It's because mail-in ballots are somehow fraudulent. Now, I worked for a town of Andover, Massachusetts, as the town selectman. I worked very closely with the town clerk. There are endless safeguards to make sure that voter fraud is not happening. Not only do you have to file an application in the case of Massachusetts for an absentee ballot, you also have to fill in the ballot, individually sign it, send it back. If the clerk does not receive the signature as well as the ballot, it is null and void. They also look at the signature to make sure that it is legitimate. There's an entire system in place. I actually just had a conversation with someone in the town about this, about how meticulous they are about it. This is backed up by data about how exacting people are about this. It is just straight up not a problem. It is a myth propagated, as the Brennan Center says, it's a myth, but it is a convenient myth for President Trump to propagate so that he can have an excuse ready to go should the midterms not go his way. And again, if he is more successful, that he will have litigation that will stop and suppress Democratic votes. This is not to mention the fact that it is easier and makes voting easier for people and makes people more able, from a convenience perspective, to participate in the democratic process by doing mail-in voting. That doesn't matter to President Trump. What matters to him is that he has a set of excuses ready to go should he lose the midterms, should Democrats be able to continue to fight fire with fire on the gerrymandering with Republicans, that he is able to say it's because of something else. This is all setting the table for that. What's next? There will be litigation around this. There is endless research that shows the reality of this, but we need to continue to stay on it. We need to continue to hold our local officials accountable so they do not kowtow to the president. And most importantly, we can't, as a country, try to make it harder for people to vote. We have trouble with people voting already, and putting up more barriers hurts our democracy far more than it helps it. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the People's Cabinet. If you did, please like, subscribe, ring that bell, and put in the comments below who else you'd like to see sworn in. And stay tuned for new episodes every Tuesday. Let's go.